Hello, in this knowledge clip we are going to discuss possible relationship between different goods. In the clip about the Marshalling cross, we only looked at the effect of shocks occurring on a certain market on the good which is traded on that particular market, but we assumed that whatever happens in a certain market will not really affect goods, so markets of other goods. This is in practice not true. First, we should clarify what makes a person to have a certain demand for a good. The reason why we would like to consume goods and services is that they have the capability to satisfy a certain need. For example, my need might be to stay awake and productive, and for this reason I may want to consume coffee. But a similar effect can be also achieved by consuming tea. Because these two goods can satisfy the same or at least very similar needs, these goods are going to be substitutes because, depending on the price, I may opt to replace my coffee consumption by tea consumption. So this is what we call substitution. Now let's see what happens in such a market, well actually in two related markets, if the two goods are substitutes. Using the example, we can write up first the market for the coffee. And in this market we have a certain inverse demand and supply function. These are going to uniquely determine a equilibrium quantity and price for coffee. But now we can also specify a graph for the market of tea. And here again we have a certain inverse demand and supply function, which again is going to give us an equilibrium quantity and price for tea. Now we assume that a shock happens in one of these markets. A quite realistic shock to assume is a negative supply shock in the coffee market. The reason why this is a quite obvious way to assume this shock is that coffee is very sensitive to the environment, the environmental conditions where it is grown. So with the global warming, the areas which can be used to cultivate coffee are shrinking. So even today, even in this year, you can already see the effect of such negative supply shock in the market for coffee. The resulting change in the market is going to be then a reduction in the quantity traded and an increase in the price of coffee. Because the two goods are related, the two markets are also related, and the consumers are going to react to the increase in the price of coffee by rather consuming more tea. So as a result, in the tea market, we can observe a positive demand shock. And this positive demand shock is going to cause the price of tea to go up and the quantity of tea increasing. Of course, with this higher price of tea, we could also say that, okay, then people are going to consume a little bit of coffee, and as a reason, then the price of coffee would increase, and that would also give some kind of effect on the tea market. So actually, there is a feedback between the two markets, but that would make our graph so difficult that we will just ignore that gradual adjustment here. And we will just stay with this initial effect graph. And one way to characterize this relationship would be to calculate the so-called cross price elasticity. That would be that we write up what happens to tea if the price of coffee increases. That is, we have here the relative change in the quantity traded of tea divided by the relative change in the price of coffee. So, in order to draw some conclusions about this, let's see at the numerator and denominator. The effect of an increase in the price of coffee, as we saw, was an increase in the quantity. That means that we have here a positive number. And the price change in coffee was also positive, so we divide this positive number by another positive number. That is, the cross price elasticity between two goods which are substitutes must be positive. Let's see another case. We stay with coffee, but we assume that I like to drink my coffee sweet. That means that when I consume coffee, I also consume a certain unit of sugar. Now, when I need to consume two or more goods together so that my need is satisfied, then we speak about a complementary relationship, or we say that these goods are complements. Pardon? We can visualize this relationship again by first starting with the coffee market, where we already have an equilibrium. And we have the related market, this time for sugar. And here again, we have demand and supply, which in this case results in a somewhat lower price for 1 unit of sugar than for 1 unit of coffee. Again, we are going to use the same exogenous shock, which is a negative supply shock in the market for coffee, which results in higher equilibrium price and lower equilibrium quantity traded. As a result, because I consume less coffee, I also need less sugar, so I'm going to experience a negative demand shock in the market of sugar, which is going to reduce the quantity traded and also the price of sugar. If we use cross-price elasticity again, then we can write up that we are interested here in the effect of the price change in coffee on the quantity traded of sugar. Then, first of all, we have here, of course, in the denominator, a change in the price of coffee, and we have a change in the quantity traded of sugar in the numerator. So what can we say about this? First of all, we know that the price of coffee increased. Second, we see that as a result, the quantity demanded of sugar decreased. So, if two goods are complements, we must have a negative cross-price elasticity.